Hi Varsha, we are live now. Over to you.
Hi all, welcome and good evening. I'm Varsha Jagtap, and for next 1 hour or 45 minutes, I'll walk you through the different agile methodologies, which are Scrum, Kanban, feature-driven development, and DSTM. So what I have tried doing here, I have compared every methodology with Scrum because Scrum is very relatable, and most of us know Scrum. Okay, so this is just a brief background. What we won't be covering is in detail every methodology because that takes considerable amount of time and it isn't a topic in itself. So let's start. So sit back and relax. Make a notes if you want to. Otherwise, you have this PPT to get reference to. Okay. So okay. Most of you are already working in Agile, but if you have not, earlier had very traditional approach of development, which is waterfall. So as you can see in the PPT, it is a very phase by phase approach. So first, like we will have requirement analysis and specification, then where only BAs and business people would get involved. Then we come to at the design level where mostly solution architect or technical people get involved. When we are done with design, then implementation and unit testing where actual coders and tester would get involved. So this is already a third phase and considerable amount of work is done. Then we have this integration where everybody was working in a different in their silo, and then they are combining their different modules. So they are integrating and testing it. At the last, we have we will go live or we will show it to the customer, and then it comes a phase of maintenance. So if you see the problem with our waterfall or traditional approach was customer was getting involved at very, very later stages. So we have that feedback loop which was not frequent. And if at this, if at the last stage, customer thinks, this is not what I want, or maybe if I want this thing differently, we had to travel back to our first stage and we had to do a lot of rework where it was not feasible, it was involving much of a cost and was not leading to customer satisfaction. So this is where in early 90s we had this approach agile development. So if you see whatever even framework I'll introduce you to have this thing in common. This is like iterative and incremental approach. So it means like we will do planning, okay, and then so we will have this planning, requirement analysis of little bit functionality, okay, designing, implementation, testing, and at the same time, okay. So I'll show you this concept of MVP as well. So whatever we have built, basic minimum viable product, we will showcase it to the client. We'll take their feedback and then we'll proceed further. So this doesn't end. It is not like we have planned for a chunk of requirements, okay, 100 of them. And then when we are done with it, we have gone to designing part. Maybe we have just taken what we can deliver in a specific time box. We have already designed, implemented, and showcased it to the client. And then he is like, okay, this is go, no go, or this is what I want extra. And then they move to the second thing. So this is all about agile development methodology. So now we will talk about the most popular approach, which is Scrum. Okay. So as I already told everybody that this is a popular agile methodology. So this would definitely bring teams together with a sharp focus and efficient collaborative approach to task execution. How that happens? So in Agile, everybody, including, there is no role specific people. Like this is a business person, this is a, QA person. So though that person can't be involved in a initiating phase. So everybody is involved from the beginning. So that's how it is like team together with a sharp focus. In fact, we don't even name them. We don't say that, this is like my tester, this is a business person. So a team as a one has been given a goal to complete a particular task and they collaboratively do that. So we would talk in a length about Kanban, but these two approaches are same in a many ways. So that we'll discuss. So it is like they do have a Scrum board. So where Scrum board is quite explanatory and transparent in itself. So where we can clearly see that our tasks are breakdown, and then this is like I'm in an initiation phase. This I have already started working. So this task I have already completed. In fact, we break down the tasks or stories at a level where we can see that we are blocked here. So I would show you how that task would look as well. But that is how Scrum and Kanban board looks like. Okay. So under this methodology, we would assign a scrum leader, or we can say a product owner. This is generally a business person. Okay. So who have influence, what do we mean by he has influence? He's a business person. So he already knows that in that particular sprint, what we are going to deliver. Okay. And this team can, superhead projects, complete them over a short space of time through series of sprint. So generally it is like we have epic. So what we can call epic, suppose I am designing a payment processing app. So I would say that, logging to particular different system and coming to, integrating with my system, this should work, right? So this payment processing system, if I am handling a banking domain and just payment processing is a epic. So under that epic could be a different user stories. So what those could be? Those could be, logging in that particular system, okay, bank paying system. And then that particular, customer is selecting their own convenient method of paying. Okay, so that could be my user story. So Epic is like payment system, and my user story could be, just selecting a particular banking related application which customer going to use. So I would just, plan that particular user story. So this particular user story, maybe authentication and selecting my convenient mode of payment is one user story. So how much time I would take to deliver that particular user story? I would say 2 weeks. In that 2 weeks, I will just develop that part, unit test that part, implement and make it on my system, go live, and I will showcase that to the client and take a feedback from that particular client within that particular sprint. So that is how my user story delivery can work. So how we are managing that using sprint? So generally in Scrum, what happens? I would fix this time frame, which is called a sprint, and which is a 2 week. So I need to tell the product owner or maybe whoever is actual client or end user person that in a 2 week time, maybe I can complete only authentication. Okay. And then maybe you can go ahead and check that authentication and give me a feedback. Okay. In next 2 week, which is like sprint is a time box and predefined. So in next 2 weeks, I'll just complete, choose my convenient method of paying the amount, and that I'll develop and showcase to you. So this is how it works. So this would require a different team member, I would say, not even UI UX designer. So different team member who are capable in their own territory, and they would get together and try to deliver that particular user story. Okay. So they have, a very, I mean, it involves sprint planning. So sprint planning is basically, as I told you, that we have this time boxed iteration where we have to deliver. That is called sprint. So in that sprint, what I can deliver. So this is like I'll jot down a task further and try to deliver in that sprint line rules. So mostly what we have Scrum Master, which monitors that every process is being followed. He sees that whatever we are committed to deliver is getting delivered. He assign and take status every day. So in Scrum we meet daily, and daily we have a meeting where we discuss your what we had done yesterday, what we are going to do today, and what is blocking in our today's review. So day-to-day meeting happens. So team meets frequently. Okay, so that Scrum Master has to ensure that team is meeting frequently. Scrum Master has also Scrum Master has to make sure that team is not navigating from their sprint move. So that is Scrum. So like as I stated, I mean they should have come earlier. Like, do we remember last time when the project was applied to waterfall, and then you can say it went okay and doesn't require overtime or change request. So this never happens, okay? Because till the time we don't see, I mean the description or requirement which is given, particularly in software industry, in a Word document or verbally. You can't just have like whenever customer or end user see it, they come to know that what is missing or what could have been better or what is not what they meant. So this generally this risk we can cover by using Scrum, because as I told you that in a 2 week sprint I will just tell you that I will just out of payment I mean, if I'm developing a payment network, that I'll just create an authentication process, maybe which is viable for users, that he will use his email ID, phone number, whatever is necessary, and then I'll showcase it to the client. So client at that time itself can say, okay, maybe we need OTP as well. Okay, this is I'm talking, discussing a very real life scenario so that we can relate. A client can see and tell us, no, I needed OTP as well. So then and there itself, we can, go ahead and implement that in our particular user story. What we generally user story is definitely is our, it could be, Epic could be our MVP, or user story could be our MVP. So if you will see here, the framework works well for smaller teams tackling work or projects with changing deliverables, unknown solution, and frequent interaction with client or end users. So here, most of you might have read that requirement should not be changing during sprint. Okay, that can change after sprint. So let's not get confused here, where when we are saying that we have a known solution or changing deliverables, doesn't mean that we can change requirements during sprint. It means that at a starting I have very brief knowledge. I gave it to team. They developed it in a within time span. They showcase to me, and after that I change requirement. So as a client, after client feedback or end users feedback, I can change, uh, I mean, implement their feedback and change requirement accordingly. So here, this is a very basic example. You can see that I do have very, first of all, the bicycle, and then before that, a very viable, like skating kind of thing. But maybe they would say, no, I don't need a skating. Maybe I need a cycle. Okay. So when we are actually showing them a cycle, that is actually, then they can say, no, I need a motorcycle, then a car. So so you will see that there is one unique criteria, one unique thing we have at every delivery stage. It is working. So when I'm saying I will be delivering authentication, so that should be working. Okay, so that is usable. So that's how we are calling it a minimal viable solution. So next we can see how Scrum operates. Okay. So here we have like vision, as in we have, I mean, this currently a pre-planning phase. Scrum doesn't talk much about pre-planning phase, and that is a different approach where pre-planning phase is getting discussed in detail. But in a Scrum process, most of the time we have vision ready. Okay, so that could be in terms of epic, in terms of feature, and then we break down that feature into user story. Okay, and then user story goes into backlog. After this sprint backlog, Scrum Master's duty come into picture, and then as I said, that sprint duration is should be predefined. So we might be having sprint duration as in 2 or 4 weeks. Okay, so I would say that this particular user story will be delivered in 2 to 4 weeks, and you will see that during this 4 week or 2 weeks, I'll have daily stand up. Okay, I'll have daily stand up. I'll make sure that I mean to the core that if a person is developing something, the demo should be demo at every stage should be given to the product owner, or could be RBA, or that product owner at the end of the sprint can give a demo to the client generally. The second thing, we need to make sure that we get feedback. Okay, we get feedback during every deliverables. Then we can have I mean, there are different types of feedback. We have sprint review retrospective, or we do have what we can call product demo given to the client, where product owner will gather our feedback and pass it to the team. So that is how Scrum process works. Okay, so we will talk about our next methodology, which is Kanban. So, me, you might have also, thought Kanban is a Japanese name, and you are quite correct over there. So, Kanban actually means signboard in Japanese language. Okay, so as I'm sharing this slide, you would come to know why this is a signboard. So it has developed by a Japanese person who was working with Toyota Taichi, and it was developed for very lean manufacturing division. And what it is called is just in time. So what they used to have, they used to have lots of inventory, okay, piled up, and those were not getting processed further. So that's what they were calling, just in time. So they wanted something to detect inefficiency. So they started with a very basic notes. Like they used to have a note, and they maybe the same type of nomenclature they have, like they had ready to pull, next, in progress, testing, not testing in their terminology, and done. So if you, have something which is, doesn't, now here if you see, I am not talking about goal or particular implementation. Here I'm just talking about getting work done. So mostly for our support or maintenance project, or maybe we have something, base version is already delivered to client, and we are getting some patches as a requirement. So what we would have them piled up over the months. And if as a project manager, or as a agile PM, or as a CEO, or somebody who wants to know the progress, I won't come to know, I mean, how many of them are in progress, how many of them are, ready to go. So this Kanban board we use, and it is similarly, and Scrum board also in a way looks like this, but that has many other metrics as well. So Kanban is very simple. Generally, they put they will put these tickets which are ready to maybe they have uh, requirement baseline, and then I would you know uh, put them in a bucket that requirement is baseline, and we can work on them. So next is something that I will decide on a priority wise. So out of these requirement, maybe these two. In the next section, you might have seen the two boxes. So these two are my most priority item. Now, like developer had already started working on that. So what he will do, he will make those status in progress. So if you have not ever, seen the board, so you can visit Jira board, or you can have this Azure DevOps channel, and you can actually see that how it is configured and how it is, I mean, getting getting processed. So mostly nobody is using those nodes, but still there are some agile people who might, prefer these nodes. But now we have Jira board, we have very digital methodologies to support this approach. And then testing, and then done. And at the end, we know that this much work is done. So that is Kanban. Kanban is very simple. Mostly, they will, if they have, uh, they find that agile or any other methodology hard to implement. They see that, I cannot change organization structure at a group. I mean, I cannot simply build feature backlog list. I cannot promise the sprint list or bringing Scrum Master on top of the board. If I find that is very complex or maybe not possible, then people go for Kanban approach. The main benefit of this methodology is, as it is easy to implement, it brings transparency and in no time. So it increases transparency, it allowing team leaders to clearly see which tasks are assigned to which team members and what is yet to be completed. So maybe if I see that, something is in testing or it's not done, then maybe I can go directly at that board, see with to whom it is assigned. I can maybe ask that person, that what is stopping you from delivering this. So that's how, it also encourages collaboration between teams, because that person might be dependent on a particular team or particular person to proceed further. So then I can ask and, proceed further. So as I promised earlier that except Scrum, whatever methodology I would explain, I would compare that with a Scrum. So how Scrum and Kanban is different. So I have, when I was explaining Scrum, I have given this example of delivering payment gateway or payment making statement. So we had some goal and we were putting that in a cycle until and unless that is not delivered. While Kanban, it makes a workflow and it is ongoing. Mostly it is like, okay, we fix this ticket. Maybe we have delivered base version to some we have design based version, and then now we have very client specific requirement which we know that would keep on coming. Okay, or maybe we have support ticket that for every year we need to fix. So this is workflow. And so if you see CISO have put, because this team pulls work continuously, it is like, okay, this is done, what's next? Next should be already ready. Okay, that it will deliver. Scrum team push towards a fixed goal. So as I already said, when a problem statement is given, the problem statement or our goal was delivering payment gateway or payment making statement. So Kanban and Scrum team use both differently. Okay, so how they are using that board. So I would say Kanban is just about, giving the transparent status where you are blocked. Agile is much more, sorry, Scrum is much more different. It is like it had that time box approach or timelines in my mind. Like in a 2 week sprint, okay, I'm seeing that this should be delivered. In a between, like out of this goal, how much is delivered, how much is yet to be delivered. And then over the period, I will try to, set a sprint goal or like particular team is, delivering, like there we talk about story points, but in a layman's language I would say 100 hours of work. So I would also utilize that particular board to for further planning, that okay, this team delivers 100 hours of work So if my next chunk of works or next user story come, so what is there I called velocity of a team. So here I would say capacity. What capacity that team has to deliver that work. Okay. There I would also have not generally a status, but also I can raise a issue what is stopping me. So that is how we use those boards differently. Most of the time, same softwares are offering Kanban board as well as Scrum board. So here, it is being said that Kanban team focus, Scrum team estimates. As I told you that, Scrum board, I would also use to, calculate the capacity of particular team. So I would say that, this particular user story, as here I have been given, particular task that I need to deliver. And basically, as I said that one of the main agenda of Agile was customer satisfaction. If we are not delivering something on time with a good quality, it loses its purpose. So that's how Scrum team has to deliver, estimate that particular user story or particular goal which is given to me by what time I can deliver. So that is how it estimate. So mainly Kanban, if you listen, hear about it, we do not have much estimation model. While Scrum has many estimation model, T-shirt size, story point. Some team prefers, in hours. Okay. So this tells this fits my like where if I'm confused like which to use Kanban or Scrum. So Kanban complements existing systems. Scrum, I should say, it generally replaces them. So as I said, I have basic version which has been delivered now. Okay, and maybe now I just have to add incremental requirements or maybe value added something or whatever a customer is saying, that maybe I would use Kanban. Scrum is basically if I want to design a system where, earlier it was into mainframe, now I have to go full-fledged web. So what I would do, I can't just, use Kanban because that requires many, user story or approach, many goals that should be clearly given to the teams which they can deliver. Okay, we would discuss the same thing further, like when to use Kanban versus Scrum. So choose Scrum where we have defining consistent workflow as your task is hard, but you can build a cross-functional team to tackle varied types of work. You are just starting with Agile, okay? You prefer a well-defined rhythm. You work on emergent and complex product. So here, like you're just starting with the Scrum process provides more structure. As I said, there are many things that Scrum comes with, and it has detailed strategy that how to deliver that particular feature. Then you can use that agile. Sorry, you can just use Scrum. You prefer a well-defined rhythm. Maybe it tells you even like what to discuss in your meeting. That in that much detail, Scrum guides you. So you prefer that. You need to go by book. Like, this is a meeting. What is the outcome of that meeting? So this particular till that detail, Scrum guides you. So as it is said of sprint with the schedule events for planning, execution, reflection. Okay. So we need to see that, before we agree to work like in a Scrum model, we need to go to our customers and stakeholders because as I said, I would be taking their feedback and their feedback should be incremented. Their feedback should be implemented in my project. So they should know and they should agree with your approach. Like I would say that after every month, whatever I developed, I'll showcase to the client, I'll take their feedback. They should be on the same line. Okay, they'll review and they'll give you feedback. You work on an emergent and complex product. Okay, as I said that mostly in the banking industry, like delivering payment solution. So these are not easy product. These are complex product. Okay, where you have a goal, you have to showcase if anything goes wrong, it could be a big, loss. So it shines when you want to learn fast and experiment because it gives teams a time frame to commit to new experiments and reflect on learnings. Its iterative approach helps team change, track and adapt. Okay, so here it is like, if I'm delivering something like, payment system, mostly software development happens because it turns around innovation. So we can't say that we are not experimenting, but at the same time, we also need to satisfy the client. So that's how it gives you, that approach, or, it has that processes well defined, that it helps you to walk through those, goals. Okay. So after Scrum and Kanban, we have extreme programming. So for extreme programming, as a name can suggest, it is actually software engineering concept, which are practicing to the extreme levels. So you will see that what exactly those are. That's why it is called as extreme programming. So Ken Back has you know defined and uh, first uh, first define this methodology, and mostly it is called like it is defined by developer for developers. So here, when I talk about developer, I'm actually talking about software engineer team, which are highly skilled in their area. So it is a software development framework that aims to produce higher quality software and higher quality of life for the development team. XP is the most specific of agile frameworks regarding appropriate engineering practices of software development. So if you'll see here, they have clearly written this word as a software development. So what does this mean? Okay. So I would tell you that it involves mostly like pair programming, unit testing. So and it is not like it is. As I said that Scrum, Kanban, and even XP. It doesn't give you detail, or it doesn't guide you to the detailed pre-project planning activity. So once you have something defined or described in a detail, then maybe you can start working on this. So how would you decide that extreme programming is a suitable or a viable option for your team? Here, you have this team of developers who can actually, talk to clients. They understand domain as well as they are very highly skilled in their coding technology. So it is not very uncommon that, developer is not talking to clients, and maybe, sometime client as an end user. Okay, so sometimes they might directly, rather than going through the requirement analysis and jotting down the requirement in detail, so they might have something like, if I'm designing particular website, and I just need to change the logo, or maybe I need to see that this a logo should appear on click, or maybe I'm giving this very simple requirement. If I have to, write down that requirement, do the analysis, go to every phase, it will be very late. Rather, I can detail it to directly to the senior developer or developer who knows everything. Around that particular uh, architecture. So I would just detail him, and he can develop and deliver that within a time. So here, what generally it is a very rapid application development kind of thing. So here maybe it would happen that pair programming could happen. So pair program is highly engaged and highly recommended when you are working with this extreme programming. So maybe these guys have unit tests. So they would just, added this simple, not simple, but a change. They might have their unit test cases, which are automated, which are ready, and they will implement and deliver within a very short time frame. So that is what generally in a real or in a real life implementation XP is used for. So again, I am comparing this with Scrum and how it is different. So one aspect is iteration length. So whether to allow modification of a requirement. So if you see XP 1 or 2 weeks, as I said, it is a rapid application development. I mean, as compared to Scrum. So Scrum is 2 to 4 weeks. Okay. Handle changes with an iteration. So what is practice for, I mean, what does that mean? Whether the demand is strictly in accordance with the priority. So in XP, it can be replaced with other requirements when a need are not implemented, but the implementation time is equal. So it is agile, I mean, extreme level of agile. So if in a Scrum, you will say it is not allowed. So once the iteration is completed, no changes are allowed, and the Scrum Master is strictly check that, now in between you can't just change the priorities. We have, came to this goal after a discussion, and now in a 2 4 weeks we will deliver that. It doesn't mean that they are changing actual requirement. They are just reprioritize something and bringing something, else. The Scrum Master will mainly say that, in between of sprint, don't do that. But in XP, it is like, implementation time should be equal. Okay. But we can do that. Priority of feature, whether the demand is strictly accordance with the priority. XP is yes, no need to. So what do we mean by that with the, when the demand is strictly in accordance with the priority? I mean, this team or maybe this practice will be implemented only when we have something which needs to be delivered rapidly and customer asks us to do that. So yes, so demand is strictly accordance with the priorities. Engineering practice, whether to adopt strict engineering methods to ensure progress or quality, very strict, require developers to be conscious. So as I said that, if in agile or sprint, I would say that whenever we are, testing something, my test cases should be reviewed by BA or developer first. Okay, they will have collaborative review of what would be tested, and then they would deliver the solution. But in XP, it is not mandatory. Maybe two developer, they will do pair programming. They will do their unit testing, and they might give it to end user or, a business user to test that. XP stages, I would say, not very different from Scrum, but I would highlight where exactly it is different. Okay. So in the phase of planning, customer meets the development team and presents the requirement in the form of user stories to describe the desired result. The team then estimates the stories and create a release plan broken down into iteration needed to cover the required functionality. Okay. Now, if last line you will see, if one or more of the stories can't be estimated, spikes can be introduced, which means that further research is needed. So if I'm somebody who's following Scrum very diligently, I might say that my requirement should be clear before, in this sprint. But if in a XP, I would say, this might need a further estimation. Just plan it, maybe a product person and developer would research together and can deliver that. Designing is a part of planning process, but can be set apart to emphasize its importance. Okay, it is like first line itself is a part of planning process, but can be set apart to emphasize its importance. It is related to one of the main XP values that we will discuss below: simplicity. A good design brings logic and structure to the system and allows to avoid unnecessary complexities and redundancy. So here, maybe they are saying that whatever a developer is designing, okay, that should be a very simple, and mostly, BA would sit with developer data designing, okay, and they combiningly will come with the solution. Okay. Third is coding is a phase of during which the actual code is created by implementing specific XP practices. Now, this practices could be coding standards, pair programming, continuous integration, and collective code ownership. So, if you see in a Scrum, I won't allow maybe pair programming. It is something like, okay, I have given this whole sprint goal to particular team and they have to deliver. Tester had to play its role. BA has to play its role, but they cannot have this pair programming, and you cannot just collective code ownership might also not be encouraged. Testing is core of the extreme programming. It is a regular activity that involves both unit tests, automated testing to determine if the develop and accept a state. So most this is a very, encouraged practice for extreme programming, that we have automation in place. And mostly automation team is done by like feature delivery team, or maybe I do have this unit testing framework where if I'm coding, I would run my all automated test by myself and would certify that at least at a first level. Okay. Listening is all about constant communication. But this is like total agile principle. Basically, this we follow throughout all the methodologies. The customer and project managers are involved to describe the business logic and value that is expected. So as I said, this is across all our agile methodology. This is not very much specific to extreme programming. Okay. So now we have feature-driven development. So regarding this feature-driven development, in 1997, Deluca, we can call father of feature-driven development methodology, has developed this. And this, now here we would talk about, from planning phase. And the way it came into picture is like this person was assigned to this very big project which has to run for 15 months. Okay. So, and he had given like this 50% team. Okay. And this is very complex business flow he had given. So basically, it is his guide that how he approached this particular development and how he delivered those functionality. So he created his set of practices, and there is this book. Maybe I have mentioned that in the end. So he had written this book. He has written this book, and which is has some development methodology defined UML as well, because he has used those UML diagram to start with this feature driven development. And there are few podcasts or maybe written link available on internet, where we can see that people, there's a person is interviewing him and asking many questions that how he has proceed with his feature driven development, and he is answering those that how actually he helped this tackle this real life situation. Okay. Let's see what is okay. What is feature driven development? So, this is an agile framework, as its name suggests, organizes software development around making progress on features. Features in the FDD context, though, are not necessarily product features in the commonly understood sense. They are rather more akin user stories in a Scrum. Okay. So what they mean is I would suggest you that whenever we say feature, we can just relate it with the term MVP. It is minimum viable product, and it has some requirement around it. So this in his book, he has also discussed about what he would call as a feature, how the features are written. But mostly in a Scrum, we write user stories like that. So user stories I mean, there is this, and you would see that it is followed across all methodology. In some methodology, like XP, which doesn't emphasize more on a documentation, detailed documentation, but like in even in Kanban, like Kanban, it doesn't even talk much detail about requirement. Otherwise, it also states you how a user story or feature should be written. It should be a simple flow. Okay, how I approach as a end user. Maybe as I said that, uh, payment system, like payment making system, that I'm a user, I would log into this session, I would have this user ID password, and then maybe I would proceed further. So what I need to accommodate, to deliver this functionality, that I would write as a user story. I mean, in a very simple manner that anybody can understand. Okay. So, I would discuss further in everything. So you would understand that why I'm saying that this is this is particular for large development teams. It followed predefined standard and require quick releases. So I mean, in a nutshell, if you see that it has a set of standard practices that we need to follow, how we are, going, proceeding phase by phase. FDD would guide that. This methodology is not well suited for a project that are small and highly dependent on the skill set of specific lead developers. So why it is saying that, maybe it talks more about pre-planning phase, maybe that is not required. So maybe it is not well suited where we have small projects. And why it is saying that it is highly dependent on a skill set of a specific lead developer. It might be because, in XP, I would say this is something which falls into category of XP. So where, my specific lead developers have so much knowledge that a client can add some requirements and he can in a no time or easily deliver that, rather than going through the feature driven, because it talks about documents, it talks about uh, processes. So what it is saying, you might not need for I mean, you might not need this development in that sense. So, okay, here we would heard this phrase first time, and that is like, it develop an overall domain model. And I am saying that, like next, these two methodologies, MDT and DSTM. This is I mean, I would say this is like whole project management kind of activities those who cover. Okay, through the inception of requirements to delivery. And this is like, so first we will cover develop an overall domain model. So what do you mean by domain model? So here, domain model can actually have those entities. So if you have worked on a database before, or maybe development, okay, so you actually create a development, this model, okay, a high level model. Here only this should include around domain. So this has entities, this has entity relationship, this has entity relationship map as well. So if I would say, what those entities could be, those entity could be my now I have written that my entity is just a customer. So what characteristic that customer have? Maybe it has specific customer ID, okay? It has particular bank account, okay? Then how that is related to my account, okay? Here I'm again taking the same example of making payment. So can my one customer has many accounts that, okay, when suppose I'm using GPay, that maybe I'm using my Gmail ID. So if my uh, customer is mapped to or recognized only by that Gmail ID, or if I have phone number, so can one customer have that phone number as well as that email ID? So these types of information about requirement is gathered and their relationship is made. So if you are aware of the relationship schema as in one to many, okay, one customer can have this two accounts, they have two different identities, then how that would flow from one entity to another entity. Maybe here we will, in a domain model, we can, uh, uh, from the business context, when we will develop, we would write a flow that, okay, this customer with his unique customer ID will use this credential, or maybe one definitely user ID has only one password, logging to the system. Okay. Now that he has access to maybe, as you know that most of, I mean, definitely when you're logging, you would do net banking or something, you will pay something. So you have these three options available. So what are those options, or how the data is flowing? So that everything from the business context would be decided and draw on a paper. Maybe it would be a formal document. It has to be a formal document. Okay. Now, when all around that feature, we have maybe developing credit line feature, or this like paying features, or maybe something as simple as, getting my account balance. Okay. So maybe these three flows, we have developed a domain model around those three flows. How exactly, I mean, this has to business user and your development architect has to sit and clear this thing out. And he has now developed a business, develop overall domain model he has developed around functionality. Okay. Now we will go to next phase, which is like building up a list of our features. The team then constructs feature list. Each feature should represent about 1 to 10 days worth of effort. A function is a tiny piece of client value functionality. For example, calculate the total amount of sale. Or here I would say that tiny piece of functionality would be checking my balance. Okay, that is just like out of whatever domain model I have developed. This is a list feature list I come up with. Like I do have this three feature list. Then third step I move is a plan by feature. So here like features are then assigned to releases. Developers are also assigned to particular features identified in the domain by a primary programmer. These features usually map to classes. So maybe if you will, I haven't, as I said that it won't be a detailed into every methodology. I have to take a screenshot of particular uh, uh, domain model, how that looks, but you can Google and see, then it will show you how detailed it is. So I would plan my features. Maybe I would say that my first, obviously, the feature or functionality which has to go live is authentication and login to my net banking. This is my high level priority. Then maybe payment. And then third would be checking my balance. Okay. So I might say that these three are my priority features, and this would go in a first release. Maybe like, having checking on my KYC, updated KYC can wait. Those would be my second level. Maybe they need less testing or they are less critical. Okay, so these three would go to my first release. Now, out of these three features, most of the time, as even if you read this podcast or online session, he had taken particular name of his developers as well. So I would say my ABC developer is very good with authentication. Maybe in his prior experience, he has developed that. So I would go and assign this particular feature through this lead development, but definitely I would consider other factors like estimation and everything. And I would say this feature would be delivered by this lead developer by this time. And I actually have my end date as well by this feature, because as I said that this is assigned to release. Okay. Now each feature has design package including sequence diagram. The overall model is defined as this feature design are built up. Teams or developers are then assigned one or more features to build. I mean, from here, your iterative mode starts. Like you will design by features, and then in next phase, your team can carry out the development, integration, testing of those features. So you could say this approach include feature-driven testing too. Ideally, all the features put into an iteration can be finished in the same iteration. Now, in a next slide, I would cover that how this feature-driven ability iteration are different from your Scrum. So here, like whenever I talk about iteration in feature-driven development, I would keep feature at a higher level and then other things around those. Where when I plan in a Scrum, I would keep that sprint size as fixed and then I accommodate what functionality I need to deliver. So here maybe I would say that, like in a next PPT, I have covered this, that, I would say that this feature would be in a 2 days or 10 days. I will decide that iteration. And according to that, I would cover like authentication. Maybe a developer had already worked on this. He would deliver that in a 3 or 4 days, or maybe if my next feature, which is more complex in a nature, that might take 10 days. So that would come second. So according to that, I would decide my sprint length. So in that sprint length, it has been discussed that do we have to meet like in a Scrum, we have to meet regularly, daily, there would be call. Here, it is not like that. It is based on, here they won't have to specifically meet daily. They would maybe meet whenever they are needed. But still, collaboration is expected and that is encouraged. So they will definitely meet, and as that has time box around it. Like I need to say after 2 days it is delivered. So after one day, definitely I have to, if I'm need to agile here, agile PM plays the role and he needs to make sure that, or maybe product person needs to make sure after 2 days that particular feature is delivered. Okay. While Scrum sprints are definitely, they are, time is decided first and then feature. Okay. Planning. Now it is said that FTT has more structured approach to planning and managing development, while Scrum is more flexible and adaptable. Basically, you won't talk much about this pre-planning phase or, development approach, or sorry, designing approach in a detail when we talk about Scrum. While FTT has a structured approach toward planning and managing development, why they are saying this? Because they have, told you in a detail that how would you do your domain object modeling and maybe how would you proceed further. So that detailed approach they have given to planning. Documentation. FDT values documentation more than Scrum. So FDT teams doesn't usually meet as frequently. Okay, here it has been already said. So when I compare FDT, Scrum, XP, I would say FDD is relatively, it is very high on documentation. In fact, it starts with the documentation, and that's how it has been, recommended for complex project where it would matter, like whatever time we have invested in a documentation, it would matter more than a Scrum. Okay. So, and that has to be in a detail so that whoever is a lead developer can take that feature documentation and deliver it. As this is more complex, that, if I'm delivering something like payment, so I would have to be very detailed, like what, even from a security perspective, from performance perspective, how that would affect a particular functionality. So end user, in FDT, the actual user is end user, while in Scrum, the product owner is usually the end user. So here, as I said, that, this particular person has, developed this and he had written guidelines. So this is basically how he had done it. So he had actually, he took feedback from end users or something, somebody like from those group. While in Scrum, they have assigned that product owner, like he would be BA and he would kind of play the role of end user. FDD focuses on feature while Scrum focuses on delivered foundational pieces. that we have discussed, team structure. So FDT, as I said that, this would be required for more complex assignment than Scrum. So it has team structure like chief programmer, domain expert, while Scrum typically, here it is written means daily, but Scrum team generally has delivery team. Okay. So, domain modeling. So, FDT emphasizes on domain modeling and domain-driven design, while Scrum doesn't. It doesn't even talk about it. It doesn't matter what before doing Scrum, what you have done. Okay, it doesn't even talk about that. It doesn't give you very detailed direction on how you should process with the domain modeling. Environment. FDT is better suited for project with a well-defined requirement and constraint, while Scrum is better suited for environments with uncertainty and evolving requirements. So I would say when like this person has developed that approach where he had to deliver this project for the Singapore bank. So banks, they might have developed very traditional feature functionality using that. So definitely, the environment or changes around them were more stable. While it doesn't mean that Scrum has to be very uncertain, but as compared to FDT, it would take some uncertainty. Okay, because here, as I said, that most of the time or most of the phase we talked about those domain object modeling, creating those feature lists. So definitely it has to be very well defined. As I took example of even making payment, so maybe if we are delivering through FDT, it has to talk about, if we are delivering that FDT function for a first time, it has to talk about security as well as their performance. Okay. So next we have dynamic system development method. So this I would say a very lengthy and this has this particular DSDM itself have this agile PM courses because there are set of different documentation are involved and you know it has this certification as well around this dynamic system development method. So, and you would see why, because so you would see this first statement itself is the longest established agile method. It is also the only agile method to focus on management of agile project. Okay, only problem with RAD approaches was that they did not scale well for people collaborating on teams. By enabling collaboration to happen within team and at scale, DSDM became one of the first agile approaches to be used within software development community. Okay, so this has been developed around 1994, I guess. Okay, and like this talks about, uh, so pre-planning phase. It talks a lot about pre-planning phase. I haven't included that particular in my slide, but this gives you a structured guideline through the phase of inception. So here first, even before feasibility study, what comes here is pre-plan. So in a pre-planning, they have advised like, business, uh, business drivers or, business sponsor kind of CEO person would come and then he would, come with the particular requirement or scope or what requirement or what project he has to do and what are his motives. Okay. So what are the risk and benefits that has to be discussed, resource and facilities, time scale and budget. So that is your pre-planning phase. Here, when you have that pre-planning phase discussion, like your go no go approach will happen. Okay. So this might sound like PMP or other approaches, but it gives you actually some documentation or some guidelines how you can implement this step by step. So DSDM is only agile approach which talks about this pre-planning phase. So then here, I mean, feasibility, we haven't even started on this first approach feasibility study. So then we can, have this business case we would put up. So there we can discuss, I mean, business people would discuss their vision, proposed solution, cost benefits, investment appraisal, and they would come with a PRL, so which is a list of project requirements. Okay, that approach they would come before even feasibility study. So that is called as PRL. So where they would discuss like what are most, I mean, what are those your must have, should have, could have features. So those are being discussed, and then they would, talk about this feasibility study. This our main first step would start. So here, what we would discuss is this even viable to implement this? Okay, and how can they make it work? Why this is being done? What are risks? Okay, and I guess not. I guess this is PRL is an output of this feasibility study. So there we will have a list of requirements. Okay. And then after this, our feasibility study, we have business. We have this business study. So it generally talks about. Okay, this is a foundation. Okay. So here they will talk about like in business study, they will talk about time boxes and detailed design. Okay, so it establishes the use of knowledge necessity that may permit the applying to supply business value. Additionally, it is the essential application design added by the maintainability necessary for the applying. So here actually what you can, what generally is being done is if we are designing website and it has info about or help, that three kind of structure I need to apply. Okay, then these are being listed. Then your I mean definitely your product. This is called as a product breakdown. And here, in fact, architecture level discussion happens. Solution related discussion happen that has been approved. Okay, and then like you have now your product breakdown list ready in business study. And then like function model here, like if you see from fourth, the design and actual build iteration would happen. And then your functional model iteration, as in it produces a collection of progressive prototypes that demonstrate practically for the client. It would still be kind of, on paper, like you have, I mean, okay, simple thing. You are designing a logo. What color of logo that would be, how that would be designed, and I mean, what do you need to design that logo? So that kind of functional model iteration level discussion happens at the third phase. Okay, and after third phase, we go to this design and build phase. So here, I mean, they do have this, implementation, and then they routinely check whatever you have developed, and then there you are collaborating with the client. Okay, so here at this phase, I would say most of the team can implement XP or Scrum, where they are actually designing, building, showcasing it to the client, and implementing it. So here it is written, it revisits prototype design throughout useful model iteration to make sure that everyone has been designed during a manner that may alter it to supply operational business rights to finish user. Okay, in a layman or in a software engineer's language, they have actually here at that point a Scrum kind of or XP kind of implementation is started, where you are designing, you are building, you are showcasing to the client. Then we have this implementation in place. It places the newest code increment, okay, into the operational surrounding. It ought to be noted that increment might not be 100% complete. changes are also requested because the increment is placed into a place. So this is simply tells you, I mean, this, if you see 1, 2, 3, this is like your, this is, I mean, even output of these every phase is detailed by DSTM. So this is a one-time activity of planning, okay? And then we are placing into iteration where we are continuously taking feedback from a client. And implementation is actually right now DevOps, where, you know, uh, uh, I mean, if you are trying to put your this like payment system into production. So just because you have put that payment system into production, what changes in an actual site we need to do that. So that is being discussed in an implementation phase. This is total project model approach. How it is different than your waterfall is in this particular design and build phase. As I said that, you know, it is time box thing, and it is refinement is done on this fourth phase time to time. As I said that it is written that routinely it should be checked with the client. So this is where it differs. Okay. And this is generally your DSTM team structure. Okay, if you see this supporting all this DSDM coach is generally your agile coach, workshop facilitator. So this is, you know, project level planning, which happens. Business sponsor is generally your CEO, your technical coordinator. Maybe obviously when you are saying that I need to have this particular, product or functionality into this, or I have to develop something newly. So what your technical needs to be. Business visionary is also kind of, at a very high level person who has knowledge about other domains and he can weigh in your risk, okay? And maybe what we can say is market analysis, and he would tell you like exactly where your project is. So how it is different than if you see, we never talked about this in your Scrum or your, XP or Kanban. It starts much after that, and here it, talks about these things. So here, when that is being done at once, then when you put actually this feature list or, your requirements into given to the development team. You should have a team leader, solution developer, a business advisor, solution tester. This is your typical, team which would keep on delivering. Okay, so that is it. As I said that, I would keep it in a very brief. I would explain this briefly because each has its own set of many guidelines that we can cover in a one-hour session. So these are some book you can refer. So this last URL, if you see, this would guide you actually to that DSTM approach. And others are so even if you have some FDT related book, that also I'll keep on mentioning. So that's it. If you have any question and answers that I can.
Hi, Varsha. We don't have any questions for today.
Mhm.
So I think we'll wind up the session. In case we have questions later, I'll surely let you know. Thank you, Varsha, for that very insightful session.
Okay, thank you, David. Thanks a lot.